Welcome to No Brainers on Public Speaking. Let's get started.
No Brainers on Public Speaking.
If you didn't use a statement of purpose as your attention getter, it's a good idea to include one in your introduction anyway. Usually, if you give the audience your thesis statement in the introduction, your statement of purpose is also revealed.
Another must in the introduction is explaining the relevance of the topic to your audience. In this section of the intro, you tell the audience how your topic relates to them. This way you'll make the ideas of your speech important to them right off the bat. This will motivate them to listen to the speech.
And finally, there's the preview of the body of the speech. By giving the listeners a preview of what's coming, summarizing the main points you'll be making, you can help your audience follow along throughout your speech.
The conclusion.
A conclusion is what comes at the end of your speech. It draws together everything that's been said and indicates what the audience should do or believe as a result of the speech. It's the last part of your outline and can be broken up into 4 parts.
A. Summarize your main points. B. Restate your purpose. C. Call your audience to action. And D. Round off.
A simple summary of main points is exactly what it sounds like. Tell them what you told them and be brief. The restatement of purpose is your opportunity to make a final appeal to the audience. It's your last shot to tell the audience exactly what you want them to do or believe. The call to action motivates the audience. It urges them to act. If your speech is about the dangers of mountain climbing, this step urges them to be wary while climbing. And finally, rounding off gives your speech a balanced, circular feel. So if you can somehow connect your conclusion back to the attention getter in your introduction, you're in good shape.
So how do you do all this stuff? What kind of stuff do you put in the conclusion to make it as effective as possible? Well, a lot of the strategies for introductions can also be used in conclusions.
A quotation can always sum up the purpose and topic of the speech with a few memorable lines.
So I urge you, take a chance. As my 4th grade Little League coach once said, you can't steal second base and keep 1 foot on first.
Challenging the audience is a technique speakers sometimes use in a conclusion. Challenging the audience motivates them to achieve the speech's purpose.
And so, the next time you go into the bathroom, make sure to ask the owner of that bathroom, where are the peanuts?
And finally, you can always offer up a utopian vision, which emphasizes what could happen if the speaker's challenge to action is met.
And if we can accomplish this, if we can convince the powers that be to ban baseball, we'll live in a world free of fear. A world where we don't have to worry about a simple ball changing the course of our lives.
Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion on the informative outline.
Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, is there more? More to life? More to happiness? More to outlines? Sadly, there's nothing more to life, but there is more to outlines.
Outline or persuasion.
If you're on the level, sit back and learn about Monroe's motivated sequence, an outline which is often used for the persuasive speech.
Monroe's motivated sequence is a pattern of arranging information so as to motivate an audience to respond positively to your purpose.
There are 5 steps in the motivated sequence which can be streamlined into an outline. These steps are the attention step, the need step, the satisfaction step, the visualization step, and finally, the action step. These 5 steps exist in a chain. Failure to fulfill any of these steps might send your speech down the drain.
Right now, we'll go over each step of Monroe's motivated sequence in detail.
Step 1, the attention step.
You learned about attention getters when we discussed introductions earlier. Well, the attention step in Monroe's motivated sequence serves the same purpose as an attention getter in a standard informative speech outline. The attention step just may be the most important step in your whole speech. If you want to make your audience feel a certain way, you've got to rope them in early. That's what the attention step does.
The purpose of this step is to make the audience give you its undivided attention. This step should make the audience anxious to hear what you have to say, jumping out of their seats even.
Johnny Ringo's back in town. Now, how do I know this? Because just the other day I saw him steal a milkshake from a little boy. Just pushed him over and stole it. Now, how long before he steals something from you?
Step 2, the need step.
The need step demonstrates that a distinct need exists for the audience members. The need may be to know something, to change a certain belief or opinion or even an institution that needs to be fixed. This is the step where the bulk of your supporting material should be. Your statistics, anecdotes, and facts can all serve to motivate.
We need to force Johnny Ringo out of our homes. Every day he robs, pillages, cheats on taxes, kicks our dogs, pollutes our waters, poisons birds, plagiarizes our work, and sets up rigged carnival games in our town square. Now he is an outlaw in the truest sense of the word, and we got a civic duty to run him out of town, huh?
So the result of this step should be that the audience should feel they need to know something or do something. It's the kick in the butt step.
Step 3, the satisfaction step.
The satisfaction step presents the answer or solution to the need you demonstrated in step 2. You have to convince the audience that what you're telling them will actually satisfy the need you've brought up.
If we want to get rid of Johnny Ringo, we got to band together. We got to form a posse, confront him, and drive him out. Now, just 2 weeks ago, the townspeople of Snake Creek drove out Eddie the Tooth Skaggs. In fact, law enforcement surveys report that 78% of towns that form posses send their outlaws a-running. The time to form a posse is now!
So, any statistics, illustrations, or other supporting material that makes your solution seem appealing would be right at home in the satisfaction step.
Step 4, the visualization step.
In the visualization step, you're supposed to intensify the audience's feelings or beliefs. Basically, you get the audience to visualize the way their situation might be if they were to see it your way.
But maybe you're scared to form a posse. Maybe you just want to forget about all this, go inside and crawl underneath your bunks. Well, it's tempting, I know. But let's say we forget about all this. Let's say we let Johnny Ringo run free. In a year's time, he'll own this town. No one will be safe. Grandmothers will be afraid to go to church. Kids won't leave their houses for school. Cats will befriend dogs for protection. Now, before you know it, he'll be running for mayor. His campaign slogan, elect Johnny Ringo, or else. And the way things look, he just might win.
In the visualization step, you take your listeners beyond the present time and place and pose the question of what might be. You can conjure up a positive visualization or, if you prefer, a negative visualization of what might happen if your plan wasn't enacted.
Step 5, the action step.
This is the final step, the home stretch. In the action step, you tell your audience what they have to do to make sure the need you've revealed is satisfied. It's your final chance to get people up off their rear ends to take action.
So I want you to go home. I want you to grab your six-shooters, your slingshots, your sharp silverware, whatever you got. I want you to call your neighbors, your friends, your clergymen. I want a posse out here by dawn. We're going to take back this town.
And there you have it, Monroe's motivated sequence. Use these steps so that your speech has the greatest possible impact.
Start out with the attention step.
We're gathered here today because we don't want our children playing with broken glass in the streets.
Move on to the need step.
We need to build a juvenile recreation center.
Follow up with the satisfaction step.
If we can get this center built, we can reduce juvenile crime and juvenile injuries. 60% of the towns that have community centers
hit them with the visualization step.
And what happens if we don't build this center? They find their kicks elsewhere. Maybe they play with glass in the sandlot. Maybe they throw rocks at cars from the overpass.
And finally, round off with the action step.
So I ask that you dig deep into your pockets and clear your social calendars. All it'll take is a group effort and a lot of cooperation.
Persuade away. Use the steps. Make Monroe proud.
Transitions.
A transition is the bridge between two different parts of a speech. Good transitions actually serve a whole bunch of purposes. They provide a sense of flow to the speech, and they make it easier for the audience to figure out where you are in the development of your speech.
In a good transition, you should always try to briefly summarize what's just been discussed, briefly preview what's coming up next, and provide a link between two ideas. There are certain word combinations that can help you do this. Combinations like not only, but also.
So, it's important to always know where your fire exits are. But not only should you be aware of how to prevent being trapped in a fire, you should also understand the dangers of actually being trapped. Smoke inhalation.
Other great transition phrases are in addition to, furthermore, and however. And remember that it's always important to script your transitions in order to avoid verbal clutter.
The next point I want to make is that, well, fire kind of, well, you know, it burns.
Well, you get the point. Scripting helps you out. It also helps to use signposts. Signposts are verbal cues that indicate where exactly you are in the structure of your speech. There are obvious signposts, like using the keywords first, second, or third to label the points you're making. There's also changes in delivery of a speech. Stuff like pauses, changes in rate, pitch or volume. All these devices are signposts that show you're moving on to a new section of your speech. But that's delivery jargon. We'll get to that in a little bit.
And that's the whole truth, people. That's what you'll need to write your speech. So know these steps and guidelines. Write furiously, write clearly, and write well, because the moment of truth is right around the corner. And that faithful day sneaks up on you sooner than you think.
Part 2. Delivering the speech.
The time has come. After all the preparation, all the research, all the writing, it's time to walk down the aisle and step up on stage. It's time to rope in the audience, to make them yours, to make them eat out of the palm of your hand. Can you do it?
Yes, you certainly can do it. But in order to present your speech to the best of your abilities, you have to learn about style and delivery. Let's tackle style first.
Section A. Style.
A long time ago, when America was young, speakers weren't as style-conscious as they are today. They didn't have to be. Listeners would willingly sit through long debates and sermons. But in today's mass media-dominated world, style is a big influence. You can bet rhetorical events of long ago would have been a lot different if speakers had to heed today's strict emphasis on style.
The challenger is a Republican. The incumbent is a Democrat. But when these two minds go head-to-head, it's all out war. Lincoln, Douglas, Douglas, Lincoln. Watch the Lincoln-Douglas debate live from Illinois. A house divided against itself cannot party down.
Style is a pattern of choices that distinguishes one speech from another. How you use language is really what determines the style of your speech. One of the biggest differences between speaking and writing is that you can't go back and revise a speech, and listeners can't go back and hear it again. Because of this, there's a higher chance that there'll be more verbal clutter in an unpracticed, unprepared speech than in a paper. So, here's a few pointers that might help enhance the style of your speech.
Clarity.
Clarity of speech is important. The more concrete words and images you use, those which your audience can easily grasp, the clearer your speech will be. And what makes for clear speech? Here are a few things to shoot for.
Well, first off, it's a good idea to limit your use of technical terms and jargon.
And that's neurolinguistic psychochemistry in a nutshell.
They'll only clutter up your message if your audience is unfamiliar with them. Remember, your audience hasn't prepared as extensively as you have for this speech, so don't make it difficult for them. You don't want to dumb down the message.
This is a scalpel. It works like a knife. Now, does anybody know what a knife does?
Just don't be too wordy. It's also a good idea to speak in the active voice. The active voice focuses on who does what. Conversely, the passive voice concentrates on what was done. Listen to the difference.
Active voice.
Captain Handsome saved the baby!
Passive voice.
The baby was saved by Captain Handsome!
You see the difference? The active voice makes for a stronger speech.
Rhythm.
Rhythm is the sense of movement or pacing within the speech. A good way to create a sense of rhythm is through repetition. That doesn't mean you should be redundant when you speak, saying the same things over and over, bringing up the same points again and again, just going on and on about the same old information time and time and time again. Just know that it's a good idea to repeat your purpose as you go through the body of your speech. Repetition helps emphasize key points, enhances the audience's ability to remember, and helps a listener understand the overall structure of a speech.
Another fantastic rhythmic device is antithesis. Antithesis is the pairing of opposites within a speech, usually to suggest a choice between the two of them. So, when Kennedy said,
"Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country,"
that was antithesis. It flows off the tongue, moves the speech forward, and makes a point. Here's a little-known example of another Kennedy antithesis.
Error, this is not a sandwich with mayo on the side. This is mayo with a sandwich on the side. Too much mayo!
Another way to create rhythm is through parallel wording. Parallel wording is when the speaker uses a word pattern that's easy for the audience to anticipate. Parallel wording is easy to recognize and creates a rhythm that moves the speech forward. When Lincoln said,
"We cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground,"
that was parallel structure. Here's another little-known example of Lincoln using parallel structure.
"I will not eat it with a nun. I will not eat it at Bull Run. I will not eat it with my mouth. I will not eat it in the South."
Imagery.
Imagery is an excellent way to make your speech vivid. A vivid speech is one that's lively, sharp, and intense. Now, we already talked about imagery when we discussed similes and metaphors with supporting materials. But the concept of imagery is worth bringing up once more while we talk about style. You see, the more you tap into your audience's 5 senses, the more successful your speech will be. Similes and metaphors do that. So does a device called onomatopoeia. Now, I know onomatopoeia sounds like an exotic and cruel name to give your child.
But onomatopoeia is actually the term for any word that actually makes sounds like its meaning. Words like moo and woof and bubble and buzz. Used correctly, onomatopoeia can enhance your speech.
The buzz of the crowd, the crack of the whip, the roar of the lions, the tittering of professional midgets. These are the sounds of the circus.
And that's style, baby. Be conscious of it and your speech will cruise along like a missile in space. Neglect it and your speech will sink like a child actor's career after puberty. Got it? Great. Now let's get out of the trenches and move on to the glory.
Section B. Delivery. The moment of truth.
When it comes to giving a speech, delivery is everything. A poorly delivered speech can make all of your research and preparation go for naught. So listen up and find out how you can make your delivery flawless.
If you haven't already guessed, delivery is the presentation of a speech. Delivery involves use of the voice and body to create a desired effect. Good delivery has 3 general characteristics.
First, delivery should not call attention to itself. It should seem natural and uncontrived. Second, good delivery should help the audience listen, understand, remember, and act on the message of a speech. And lastly, effective delivery should create a sense of empathy in the audience, a sense that the speaker feels what the listeners feel and knows what they think.
The million-dollar question? How can you make these things happen during the delivery of your speech? The million-dollar answer? Well, success in delivery lies in 2 main areas, physical aspects and vocal aspects. We'll tackle physical aspects first.
Physical aspects.
Use of the body and physical movement will always influence an audience's first impression of a speaker. It'll also affect their willingness to take the speaker seriously. Changes in bodily placement and physical movement can even help mark transitions in a speech and keep an audience focused on the main message. The gist of all this? Physicality is important while delivering a speech. That in mind, let's look at a few aspects of appearance and body movement and find how they can work for you.
Attire. What you wear really depends on the event at which you're delivering the speech. Some settings are formal, some more casual. So it's really important to know as much as possible about your setting before the speech. You don't want to give a toast at a wedding wearing snow pants and a tank top.
One rule of thumb, speakers usually dress slightly more formally than the audience members. Speakers have to look somewhat professional, or at least well-kempt, in order to enhance their credibility. A speaker who constantly pushes hair out of her face, adjusts his Red Sox hat, or wears clunky yard sale jewelry distracts the audience from the main purpose.
Basically, put a lot of thought into how you dress. The last thing you need is for your pants to have an effect on the impact of your speech.
Yes.
Yeah.
Posture.
Posture is another major physical aspect of public speaking. How you carry yourself affects your audience's opinion of you. When you speak, make sure you stand up straight but not rigid. It's never a good idea to shift your weight from one foot to the other, and try not to cross and uncross your legs. Also, make an effort not to lean forward onto the desk or podium. Just take time to make yourself comfortable before a speech. You can make yourself comfortable by breathing naturally and standing with your feet roughly shoulder length apart.
Your posture should say, "Doggone it, I'm stable," and "By Job, I'm assured." The trick of it is, you should be relaxed without looking sloppy. If you can hack it, your speech will improve that much more.
Body placement.
A lot of the time, speakers trap themselves behind a podium. They cling to it and use it as a crutch. This is limiting.
If you're speaking from behind a podium, it's a good idea to step away occasionally. You don't want the podium to be a barricade between you and the audience. Movement in the direction of the audience shows you trust them. Movement's also a good way to make clear transitions within a speech. If you're moving on to discuss a different point, movement of your body can let the audience know that.
Gestures.
Gestures are equally important in the physical presentation of your speech. Gestures are the movements of your hands and arms during your speech, and they're used to emphasize your ideas. Incorporating gestures into a speech is sometimes a problem for speakers.
Speakers are usually pretty conscious of their hands. A lot of the time they have no idea what to do with them. Fidgeting, clenching your fists, and any other unintentional hand motions will do nothing but distract from your speech. Well-timed, well-conceived hand gestures can really enhance a speech.
Facial expressions.
Facial expressions are bound to be an important part of your speech. If you're talking about something sad, you're going to look sad. If you're talking about something frustrating, you're going to look angry. And if you're talking about how great celery is, you're going to want to convey a look that says, "Hey, I enjoy celery." In any case, you want to make sure that your facial expressions are appropriate to the subject matter of your speech. Somebody who smiles all the way through a serious speech will lose their credibility real quick.
And that's why it's important for us to fight against all forms of disease.
One really important point to remember about facial expression is that eye contact is extremely essential.
In mainstream American culture, somebody who's unable to look a person in the eye is perceived as having something to hide.
Also, speakers who don't look at the audience can't see how the audience is reacting. The audience's facial expressions can give clues about what interests them in a speech and what doesn't. This feedback can help you adjust the speech to their needs.
But if you try to make eye contact with everyone in the room, you'll look like a jackrabbit hopped up on caffeine and sugar. Your best bet is to mentally divide the room into 3 or 4 parts and shift your focus between these areas. This way, every listener will feel like you're directly talking to them.
Vocal aspects.
The easiest way to make a speech fun and memorable for everybody involved is to make changes in the use of your voice. That's called vocal variation, and it's also one of the ways the audience will judge your credibility. That's why right here and now, we're going to discuss some of the most important dimensions of voice. Stuff like volume, pitch, rate, and pausing.
Volume.
Volume refers to loudness of voice. Most of the time, the volume of your speech will depend on the size and shape of the setting it's delivered in. If you're in a large, open barn, you'd better be loud. If you're in a tiny cafe, your voice should be softer. In any event, being too loud or too soft can be a problem. Speak too soft.
We will fight the enemy on the land, in the sea, in the air.
And the audience will strain to hear you. But speak too loud.
Choosing the right couch is important for any homeowner.
And the audience will feel uncomfortable. So make sure you hit the right balance.
In addition to controlling the volume for the whole speech, changing the volume at certain points in the speech can help emphasize important ideas.
So how'd it go?
They're gonna build the center.
Great. Now you can clean the garage.